My name is Miss Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some disease. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys, Miss Liz in the house. And we had an incredible afternoon with Mike Bolden. We talked about his PGA bowling tournament that's coming up. So check that tea time out. It is live and you can see it now on all the platforms. But tonight we have the incredible Zoey Michaels in the house, and we're going to talk about her tea. And her tea tonight is Escape, Authentic, and Feelings. That's the tea we are serving in the house. We do not serve a beverage in this house. We serve real life stories and real life people. So before we get started, let's get over to all those good platforms: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Clapper, Lemonade, Blue Sky, all of those good platforms. And if I haven't mentioned them, check those out. Miss Liz is on all those platforms as well. Give those a like, follow, and subscribe, and get these tea times out there because they do make a difference for the guests and for people who resonate with the stories that come to the table. Also, check out the podcast apps: Podbean, iHeartRadio, Listen Notes, Spotify, and all of those good ones. Apple Podcasts, all those good platforms. Check those out. Miss Liz is there as well. Give those a share. And if there's a tea time that resonates with you, please send your feedback because I always enjoy getting the feedback from all of the tea times. Also, jump over to babyboomers.org. Miss Liz has been partnering with them for about 3 years now. If you're looking for something or to be featured on different podcasts, they have over 50 different podcast shows on there that they're looking for guests as well. So you can get featured on those as well. Miss Liz always is celebrating everybody out there. So check out babyboomers.org. Incredible stuff there. There's radio shows there. There's podcast shows there. There's news up there, all for the good baby boomers out there that are looking for something different. So let's get started with disclaimer and then a beautiful intro. And then we're going to get Zoey in here and we're going to spill some tea and have some fun tonight. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit my link tree, Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where every story reminds us that sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't found in the world around us, but within the fractured pieces of ourselves. Today's guest is a storyteller who believes that the most unforgettable stories come from looking at life from a different angle and daring to ask, what if? Please join me in welcoming Zoey Michaels, author, podcaster, and creative storyteller, whose newest novel, Fractured Shadows, invites readers into a gripping journey of mystery, emotion, resilience, and the complexity of the human spirit. Zoe describes herself as someone who thinks sideways, blending the familiar with the unexpected to create stories that challenge perspectives while remaining deeply relatable. Her writing explores the delicate balance between light and darkness, hope and fear, truth and illusion. Beyond her novels, Zoe is passionate about authentic storytelling through her podcasts and conversations, always believing that every person's story deserves to be heard. Today's Tea Time will explore the inspirational behind faction shadows, finding strength through adversity, the art of thinking differently, and storytelling that reflects real human emotions, creating authentic characters readers never forget. Zoe reminds us that sometimes what appears broken is beyond repair. Sometimes those fractures are where the light begins to shine through. So grab your cup and join us for a thought provoking conversation filled with imagination, courage, and real life tea, truth, experience, and awareness. So let me get Zoe in here and let's spill some tea. Can you hear me, Zoe?
Hello there. Yes, I hear you.
Oh, there we go. My pesky little hearing aids. Here we go again. Now I gotcha. They take time to click in. I'm just like, what are you guys doing, these little ears of mine? So welcome, Zoe.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really just grateful to be here, and I hope I can live up to all that you read about me.
I went deep. Did I not go deep?
You did, but that's okay. I will do my best.
Well, Zoe, let's get to know you first, and then let's get to know your work and your books. Zoe, who were you as a little girl, and who are you now?
Oh, goodness. Oh, I would say I was very shy, even up until a teenager, but I was very shy as a child, although apparently very happy because my earliest first nickname was Smiley. So apparently I was a very happy little child, even though it was not unusual to find me hiding behind the nearest tree or parent, whatever the case may be.
So you were a tree lover as a little girl.
Yes, definitely love trees. Still do. I just find them fascinating.
So Zoe, tell us a little bit about who you are today.
Oh, goodness. Today, I am a person who finds herself in an ordinary life and finds that my imaginary world is far more interesting. And so, much like Walter Mitty, I like to live there.
So you're in the Wonderland a lot, right?
Frequently, someone says something or, something comes up and my mind instantly goes off on a tangent and I have to go, whoa, Nelly, come on back here and let me focus on this.
Whoa, not too far. We're not going down that rabbit hole too far.
We can't have fun today. We got to focus on this. All right. If you say so. We'll come back to that later.
We have a comment here from Rochelle is, what a beautiful topic tonight. Thinking sideways already has me curious. Looking forward to hearing Zoe's perspective. So let's get to the sideways thing, Zoe. Let's get our listeners really engaged with the sideways side.
Yeah. So that thought about thinking sideways, the first time I ever heard that expression, it really resonated with me. And that's actually some music lyrics from a song that was in that movie, Sweet Home Alabama. You've got me thinking sideways. You got me, I think, talking backwards. Anyway, so the first time I heard that, I thought, yes, because my friends would always say, we know where you're going. We're just not sure how you're getting there. And that is the very nature of thinking sideways.
She took the side road, guys, and that's how she got there. And we have a comment here from Agri. The title instantly grabbed my attention. What inspired the phrase thinking sideways? So we were just getting into the thinking sideways. So get a little deeper into the sideways thing, Zoe.
Okay. Well, and I wonder if she's talking about the title about, the book Fractured Shadows, because it seems to be like a two-part question, the way it was worded.
Yeah,
so I'm not
I
sure
think I think it's a 1 and a 2 question.
Yeah. So the thinking sideways, again, just that this is how we get there. So Fractured Shadows was not intended to be written. It was an afterthought because the original book, The Echoed Mind, was the story I was aiming to tell, and it was intended to be a 2-part. And then when no one, brand new author didn't know how to market properly, I thought, well, let me write a little smaller book and help people get into the Echoed Mind. And so I had to kind of rethink that and say, okay, how did we get to this world? I know what I had in mind, but how do we actually put this in writing? And so just the idea that here's the world we live in today. We are so pigeonholed, like you end up with a job that was intended to pay the bills, but now it's like this is your career, whether you intended it that way or not. So how do I take that and convey that in the book? I don't know if that helps answer her question, but that's where
I like the way that the direction that you're going with that with Zoe, is because when we're, as a writer, we have a thought in our mind, right? We have a direction on how we see it, but we have to also look outside of our writing, right? And kind of see where the window is of the readers. It can get complicated sometimes because we will be like, oh, that's a cool book, that's a cool story, but is the reader going to enjoy it?
Right, exactly. Interesting thing too is that a story can change based on your interaction with people. So I had this whole idea. I had outlined it was supposed to be a 2-part series, right? And I knew I wanted to end the first part of the book series on a cliffhanger because, we want them to come back and read the second one. So of course you want a cliffhanger. And I had already clearly an idea in my mind of where I was going to go with book 2. But as I've been talking on podcasts and interacting with far more experienced writers, my entire plan for book 2 has changed. And if I've knocked people off for a loop with the first book, which is my hope, they're really going to be knocked off their feet with the second book once I get it written, because even I'm surprised by the idea that came to mind. Like, ooh, I can't wait to write this.
She's going to take you guys all sideways. You're all going sideways.
Right, exactly. That's the plan. At least that's the hope.
So let's talk about cliffhangers, because I've never really talked about cliffhangers with any of the other authors I've had on Tea Time. So talk to me about cliffhangers. Was it hard for you to come up with a cliffhanger?
It really kind of was. Because with a cliffhanger, usually it means, something really unexpected happened, or perhaps a character, might appear dead. There's so many different variables that go into a cliffhanger. And in your mind, it's like, do I want to sacrifice this event, or do I want to sacrifice this character? And, how do I recover from this setback? Because that's what they're suffering, is a setback. And so how do you, again, keep your audience's attention, not make them go, oh, you did that? Well, forget it. I'm not going to read the next book. You just have to take all this into account when you're planning this cliffhanger, because you're not going to want them to go, no, you don't want a situation like, and your favorite character died, the end. I mean, that would be awful.
That's it. I'm done with that series.
I'll never read that author again because they disappointed me. So, I mean, a lot of that process is in there as you're planning and writing this. So hang in there, guys. If you read The Echoed Mind, stick around. I promise the second book will be even better.
She isn't taking the character out. We have a question here from Mac, and it is, how did storytelling first become such an important part of Zoe's life?
That's a really wonderful question. And I'm straight up tell you, I am a bookworm, but there's a story behind that. Again, shy little girl. Oh my goodness, I was the worst, even in kindergarten. But I was going back through my papers one day, and I was reading like through your old, report cards and such. And I always had this memory of my dad reading to me as a little girl, along with my 2 little brothers. But I never knew until I went back to look at my report card the reason why I thought just dad loved me, and he did. But turns out the teacher was like, Zoe is a very poor reader, and you need to do homework, Dad. You need to start reading to her every night. And so that's what he started doing. He took his homework seriously. He pulled out a storybook that me and my brothers loved, with multiple stories in that book. And there was a point where my brothers always loved this one specific story, and I didn't mind it. But I mean, this one story got read a lot, so much so that I had it memorized, and that's really where reading took off for me. So that's really that was the beginning of, me loving reading, which then developed into loving to write stories. I still remember writing like my very first story when I was probably, oh goodness, I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. And while I was very proud of the story, what I chose to write about my family didn't love. but that's okay. But I didn't really think of myself as a writer until much later in life. I didn't see the pattern, even though I was always very proud of what I wrote. I would look for attention for it. No one ever said, Zoey, when you grow up, you should be a writer, or you should be this or that. It was many, many years later that I thought, I could write a book.
Well, Zoe, I like what you said about your father reading to you, because that's where bedtime stories come into, right? Where grandparents or aunts or uncles or, mom and dad read bedtime stories. It's to get the repetition of the word, right? The children hear the word. It's like going to school and the teacher sings a song like, good morning, how's your day? Bonjour, mon ami. Like, it's the reading of the words all the time. The repetition of the words that helps with people who have trouble reading and writing at a young age. I know I suffer with dyslexia, and having a story read to me or a word said to me in a different language, because I'm bilingual, I had trouble associating, like with blue and blur. I always wrote those backwards, right? Or friend, I would put the E before the I, or the I before the E, like all those little tricks, right? But having somebody read a story to you over and over actually opens the mind and opens the wonder. And I think that's where the imagination comes in, because when someone's reading you the story, you're seeing your version of the story. Your brothers are seeing another version of the story. And then you're like, oh, well, the character is going to do this. But then your brothers are arguing, no, it's going to do this. Like, until you get to know the story, then, and I think that's where imagination opens up. And I think that's where the best writers come from. And that's where stories like yours come from, where you come in with a sideway twist. Like I could see you as a little girl, when your dad's reading you a story and you're like, it's coming this way.
Could be. I don't remember that far back. I do remember loving the story, but I don't remember if I was really the creative thinker at that stage in life that I hope I am now.
So what age did you actually start writing, like published books?
So really, I started late in life. So the first true book I can say I wrote, I was in my early 20s. It was only published 3 or 4 copies. And what I wasn't thinking of it as a book. It was never intended to be sold. It was what I called a homesick project. I had moved cross country. I had all these wonderful memories of growing up in Texas with my friends around me. And circumstances in life pushed me out to Oregon, and that's where my family was. And while you love your family's family, but I was very attached to that area where I had grown up in Texas. And so to cope with that, I started writing. I started writing about my memories, just collections of memories, and I called it Traces of You. And I published it for myself and 2 friends who were especially close to me, because it really involved those specific friends. So that was my first true published book, as far as anything intentional. But as far as open to the public, that was last year. Last year was when I first started actually publishing through Amazon, work intended for the general public.
Well, my listeners know what's coming next. Zoey, how did you feel when you pushed that to go publish, to go live? How did you feel?
Alice in Wonderland comes to mind.
So I love it.
Down into the rabbit hole, right? So I was really in unexplored territory. King Solomon had written, to the making of many books, there is no end. And so I thought, why not? I can be just one more of those books. And naively, I thought if I publish it on Amazon, it will find readers and, I will maybe make a few dollars while I'm at it. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. And I learned that the
I'm
hard
so
way.
glad you said that, because a lot of writers, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be a big star. You got to
Well,
get known
even if
first.
100 books sell and I make $5 per book, hey, that's a little extra money in my pocket. Yeah, no. And it took me several books, because I had several books, in my arsenal, because I figured, there's going to be an element of learning curve. So I had a good 4 or 5 books on the back burner. So book number 1, nothing. Okay, well, let's do something different. Let's put out book number 2. So in a short space of time, I actually published on Amazon like 3 or 4 books within maybe about a 6-week to 8-week period. And it was because I had them, in storage.
Stored in the sideway closet.
Exactly. So yeah, I learned the hard way. That's not the way it's done.
Right? Well, we have a couple comments that are coming in. Kelly, the ideal of finding meaning in everyday moments really speaks to me. From Clayton, I love hearing about emotional truth and storytelling, because that's what readers remember most. And then from Rochelle, we have a question. What life experience shaped your writing the most?
There's so many to choose from. I'm not married now, but I was married, and there was a lot from that marriage that I've taken with me. One of the things in that marriage was that because of that, I was, one might say, privileged to live out of this country for a period of time. And that really gives you a unique point of view. For not quite a year, I lived in the country of Ecuador. So, seeing, the way that people act down there, the interactions of families, the way they do, certainly adds some flavor. And sometimes it's just the most minute experiences. Just recently, I just had inspiration for another book I'm intending to write. I've already got it outlined. But sometimes just a simple interaction at the grocery store can be the most amazing inspiration. In the case of this recent thing, I was checking out at my Aldi's, and I've seen this checker many times, and I happened to be in the mood for chocolate that day. So, she almost forgot to ring up my chocolate. And I made a joke about, yeah, we'll just have to call you Willy Wonka. And she said, I'd like to be called something else. And most people would probably walk away and never think more beyond it just being a simple exchange. But I walked away and my mind was turning and churning. Like, what if there was someone maybe from another place, maybe even another time? Maybe there was a shortage over here where there's no real good chocolate. The chocolate is subpar at best. And this person comes from a place where they have all the same resources, but they know how to make amazing chocolate. Maybe she's, here on purpose. Maybe she's trapped. Who knows? But what if, she was generous and, snuck people chocolate, this extraordinary chocolate, and it had like a specific brand, and people decided she was named such and such, even though they didn't know her name. And it became like a commodity type of thing. People traded on the black market. I mean, there's so many angles to go with that, all from that simple conversation.
Yeah. You just never know what a grocery conversation will take, right?
Right.
Some like some of you, like you said, Zoe, some will take it away as just a conversation. Others will say, what can I do with this?
Right. Exactly. Or you meet 2 people who were born the exact same day of the same year, and they happen to be married to each other. Well, there's a story waiting to happen.
Right? Well, we have another question for you, Zoe. It is, which came first for you, writing books or podcasting?
Definitely the writing books. Funny thing, I very rarely have ever watched podcasts. I watch them usually with a purpose in mind. Or if someone's like, hey, you have to watch this podcast. I'm very bad about that. Sorry. So after the 3 or 4 books and nothing happening, and I had posted on Facebook several times, and I happened to post in this one area, and a life coach reached out to me and offered me 20 minutes of her time and didn't charge me a penny. And she was like, Zoey, what does it mean to be an author? How do you view it? She kind of walked me through this thought process. And what we decided by the end of that 20 minutes is that by the time, shortly after I got off that call with her, that I would look for some place where I could be a podcast guest, which was something I kind of knew I probably should do, but I really was resistant against it. But I went on as a guest, and thank goodness I wound up where I did, because he was such a nice person and such a wonderful podcast. And for a first-time experience, by the time I was done talking to him, like, I could do this. And so I asked him questions. He talked to me for like another 30 minutes after our podcast session and answered my questions and encouraged me that, yeah, if you're thinking about a podcast, that you should do it. And I had a few more positive experiences. One really yuck experience. Thank goodness that wasn't.
I think we all have one of those.
And so I had thought, well, okay, so interesting kind of side thing. What motivated me? You know how Anthony Robbins used to say it's either pain or it's pleasure that motivates people to do something. That's Moses. Well, in my case, it was pain. I had a very bad couple of years, had some very traumatic type stuff happen. And so my thought in initiating a podcast was to offer a platform for others who had suffered trauma to come on. Well, apparently I went a little too specific, and so I couldn't find any guests. And so I pulled it back some. And now we have a healthy podcast, coming out to 1 year anniversary. It launched last June. So here we are 1 year later. But yeah, that's the story of the molten truth.
We have a question here about the podcast. Let me just find it here. What has podcast interviews taught you about your human connection?
I wish I had some kind of profound answer for you. At the end of the day, I think it's just about enjoying a conversation, just being a person. I started out in my podcast, again, the shyness kind of came through a little bit there. I've learned to loosen up, but I would do all kinds of research about the people first in the beginning. I would actually do a pre-interview before the actual interview in their first 2 or 3 months, just because I was nervous. After 3 months, I wing it. And so I've just learned to relax and trust people. And, I still record them rather than doing live. I'm not brave enough to do live the way you are.
I've done it for 7 years, and so far I think I'm doing okay.
Well,
the listeners, is Miss Liz doing okay for a live show? I'd like to know.
I think you're doing great. I'm not concerned so much about what I would say, because I don't usually go back and edit anything unless there's something like seriously wrong with the technology portion of things. I just don't like things that would be snuck in on me. And sometimes people have tried to do that. Like, the show is not about this. We're not having this. Yeah. And at least the advantage of not being live is I can say, okay, look, we're either going to edit that section out or we're not going to broadcast it. Because there are some things that are permissible and some things I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
Well, you know how I look at it, Zoey? It's skeletons in the closet that I can come back and say, you remember 3 years ago?
You make a good point.
Well, we have a couple more questions coming in from Kyle. How do music and storytelling inspire each other in your creative process?
I absolutely love that question, because to my way of thinking, they're very still cyclical, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It's like an ecological system. You need the rain to fall, and then you need it to be absorbed back into the hemisphere so it can fall again somewhere else. And I view it the same way with stories. I often find inspiration in song lyrics. In fact, there's a book I'm still working on that I'm titling it Angry Air. And it was inspired by a song I've listened to 100 times. Well, not thousands of times. I've heard it most of my life, and I've always loved that. And there's a line in the song that, it's Kenny Loggins, by the way. Air that's too angry to breathe, water our children can't drink. It's called Conviction of the Heart is the name of the song. And I've listened to that song so many times, but that line just really resonated with me one day when I was in my kitchen. And I thought, okay, what if we did like a time travel when the air was pure? Well, what about like an American Indian who travels to the future and sees all this? I mean, so again, so to me, again, so cyclical. It's like an ecological creative system.
So you had me when you said time travel, because I love time travel. I
So do
believe that we time travel all the time in our dreams, in like in the moment of awake as well. I find we time travel. If you close your eyes, you're awake, but you close your eyes and you just go to another place, right? So for me, I consider that time travel. And I can hear the birds and I can hear the traffic and everything. And I'm just like, oh, I went back 5 minutes. Oh, I went back 10 minutes. And then I'll open my eyes and be like, oh, that wasn't long enough. I want to go back longer, you know?
I get you. You know, it's like that too when you go back home, Moses. So when you go back home to a small town that there's not been much change, which is rare to find, it feels like these days. But my family's originally from Northwest Indiana. So there's a couple little spots where the town hasn't changed at all. And I always feel like I've gone back 30 or 50 years when I go there. And I love that feeling, that time travel feeling.
Yeah. You had me at time travel. Anybody wants to get a hold of Miss Liz? Time travel. We can do it. Bring your machines. Let's all just go and have some fun. Zoey, I'm going to bring up your book, Fractured Shadow, so we could talk a little bit about it and tell the listeners a little bit about the cover and all that good stuff for the audio listeners who can't see the cover.
Yeah. Yep. So that is my low budget cover. So
I like it. I actually like it. Like, it's got a lot of story in that cover.
Well, and that's kind of what I wanted. I mean, it's essentially what I was looking for. I wish I was that kind of artist that I do paint sometimes, but I don't have that level of talent. I'm sorry to say.
I like it. So why the colors?
Just that whole darkness thing, because you're dealing with a situation where, you know, life is normal, sunshine, all is good, but now something dark creeps in, and it comes under the guise of this is going to be good for you, it's good for society, you know, and this change, and most people go along with it. But then there's a few that are like, this you sounds good, but if you scratch below the surface, this isn't as good as you think it is, and you know, let's watch it, but let's also see, okay, what are we going to do about it? And so that's kind of why I wanted that darkness conveyed in this cover.
And on the cover, I see a tree and I see people. So what does the tree represent and what do the people represent?
Well, you notice the tree, you know, no leaves, no life. It's just dying. And in my mind, again, this is a low budget cover, so I couldn't choose all of that. But, you know, the people, you know, are in this basically lifeless type of situation. Notice how some of them are even holding up some devices. So there's that element to it. But yeah, I didn't have a huge amount of control over the cover. I kind of had an overall idea, but I can't take credit for just the overall design of it. I'm sorry to say.
I like the cover. I don't think there's anything wrong with this cover. I think it stands out. It's got a story within itself. But then again, I look at pictures and I can see a story. I see the representation of a people like distraught and pulling away, like going into the darkness and not understanding why the darkness is there. That's what I get from the cover.
Yeah. And being controlled by technology, because that's really what Fractured Shadows kind of get you down to, that thought process that, you know, instead of thinking independently, using your power of reason, you know, you're going to be, you know, you've done this job your whole life and you're good at it, but you know what? We think we can, you know, put you into this pigeonhole and you're going to do better. I mean, one of the characters in this book, exactly, that's what his experience there. Of course, there's more to the story, so I don't feel too bad not giving that little, you know,
nobody, Miss Liz only gets the Easter eggs after we go After the live is done, I get some Easter eggs, but I don't share them because I want you guys to go out and grab the copies and get the books. Tell us a little bit about the characters. How did you build the characters in this story?
So again, this one's actually backwards. These are actually more about the supporting characters from the Echoed Mind. The Echoed Mind centers on Rowan and his niece Lyra. And those are the characters I relate to because they're kind of modeled after myself and my uncle. So they get embroiled into this underground with Adric and Rhea, and it's Adric and Rhea, and as well as Elias Casimir in this prequel, that are setting the stage. So Elias Casimir is the originator of this system, and like most scientists, guys, I built something that was intended to be used for good, but things don't always work out the way you plan. So I built this escape hatch, but it's very secret, hush hush, and you have to put these pieces, And then you've got Adric, who is this wonderful teacher who sees life changing, and he's like, don't like it, but I don't know what to do about it. And then he meets Rhea, and I'll leave her just read about it.
Well, I think it's really cool, and I've seen some of the other titles of your books. So how do you get the titles? Do you get the story first, or do you get the title first?
Sometimes a little bit of both. I will jump back to one of my favorite books, and that is Love, Lies, and Pina Coladas. That one is inspired by a song by Rupert Holmes. I'm sure you know it, the Escape song, If You Love Pina Coladas. And I thought, what if that was going on in modern day? What if we took the lyrics of that song and pulled it to our modern day time period? What would that look like? And so that was what helped me create that story in the first place. But I also wanted to bring an element of, most people, they read romance stories or they see the romance genre, and it's all about, it's unrealistic expectations because romance basically is feel-good junk food, right?
And this message is refreshing, right? It's good like junk food. Some relationships are good junk food, guys. We just have to enjoy the junk.
Sometimes we do, and I do too sometimes. But I wanted to go beyond that. I wanted it to be centered on a couple that was already married to each other and still under the same roof. And their marriage just maybe it can be saved. It's not so far gone that they can't rebuild it. And so that's what Love, Lies, and Pina Coladas is. It's a rekindled romance between a husband and wife who do still love each other, but they've just had some really rough times, and they are recovering from their emotional wounds, and they've been doing it on their own. But guess what? It's time to do something to fix that. And
I like the title. I love the title. And I used to be a pina colada girl until I was allergic to coconut. And then it was like, can you make me a pina colada without coconut? And they're like, I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I mean, heavy on the pineapple, find some kind of coconut substitute, maybe.
You just never know, right?
I'm a recipes girl. I love the kitchen. I love food too much, but I love recipes.
Well, we have another question for you, and it is from Raishan. What's one piece of advice you'd give someone who's afraid to start writing?
So write for you. Don't worry about what anyone else thinks. Don't worry about if anyone else even will ever read it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but write for your pleasure. And let me say this too. This is another reason why I wrote Love, Lies, and Pina Coladas. I wanted to write something that I would enjoy. Who cares what anyone else thinks? Probably not the best thing to say as a writer, right? But write for you. Write what you would enjoy reading, because you might just pick that up again in a few years and go, oh yeah, I love this story, and read that. Or future generations. Perhaps you're leaving something that a grandchild might someday go, wow, my grandma or grandpa wrote the most amazing story, and maybe we should publish it. Could happen.
Right?
So write for your pleasure, and let whatever happens. Don't worry about the publishing part unless you just really want to.
Absolutely. And sometimes when you write a book, it doesn't need to be published. You can put it into a closet for like 5 years or 10 years until you're
Exactly.
ready to publish it, because pushing that publish and that live button is one of the scariest things out there. You
It
know,
is.
you got to be ready because there's no turning back. There's going down the rabbit hole, and that's the way it is. It's like you said, Alice in Wonderland, right?
Exactly.
It's pushed and it's like, ooh, where am we going? Am I going to the Queen of Hearts or am I going to the Mad Hatter's table for tea?
Right, exactly. And I'll just, throw out case in point, and if I'm wrong, then someone can correct me. But I believe Gone with the Wind, written by Margaret Mitchell, was, you know, she was still writing that. I don't think she actually, submitted it to a publisher. I believe it was her family that did that. So case in point of something that gained huge attention. So there you have it.
Right? Because you might not publish your work and your grandkids or your kids will find your work when you're gone and then say, you know what? I think mom would have liked me to publish this or dad would have liked me to publish this. And then history writes itself. I believe that those are stories out there as well that are happening today.
I would agree.
We have a question here from Prophet Power for you. Has podcasting changed the way you write fiction?
Overall, probably not. I like to think that my thoughts are my thoughts. And so I would say overall, no. However, I mentioned it earlier about the second book for The Echoed Mind, being interviewed with a podcaster who has huge amount of experience, not just with podcasting, but with books. Did make me think a little bit differently about how I'm going to write that second book. Just that I'm going to make it far more surprising than what I originally outlined. And I don't think that's so much about the podcasting itself. I think it's just about having interaction with more experienced writers, which you can do through podcasting. You can do, there's online forums with bona fide writers. Don't fall for just any writer approaching you, please. And
there's
also
a lot of those out there.
huge amount. I've been tagged by so many people claiming to be this writer or that writer, or just what yeah, don't fall for it. Find a forum, find someone, legitimate, let them introduce you to other writers. Go to, where the writers are signing autographs and actually showing their books, then for sure they're real. But yeah, I would say the feedback from other writers, genuine writers, has been influential.
Well, we have a question here about location. So from Bargain Home says, I'd love to hear which location influenced you the most.
Oh, goodness. I have lived in so many places. That's probably why maybe my thoughts are so diverse and mostly just say crazy. So there's probably the most influence in my life, Northwest Indiana, Texas. I've lived in the West Coast. I definitely love the California, Oregon side of me, but I don't know that they influence my writing yet. Could happen. Definitely Ecuador did have an impact. As for the rest of the places, not really in my head.
I was going to ask you because when you sent me your bio and I seen Ecuador, I was like, how did she get to Ecuador? I'm sure there's a story there.
Yeah, the shorthand is my son was very good to his mother. I'm sorry, my husband was very good to his mother. That's what I meant to say. My stepson's pretty amazing too, and he's good to his mother, but that's not who we're talking about.
Well, we have another question that came in. How does music influence your writing process?
Yeah, I think we might have touched on that, but again, it's cyclical. We talked about how the Rupert Holmes song. We talked about the Kenny Loggins song, and sometimes, I'll take a case in point. The couple that I found that were born the same day of the same year, which I found through my work, and it got me thinking. I decided that it deserved a song of its own. So with the assistance of AI, I wrote the lyrics. I have to own that. And then since I couldn't find a real music artist as much as I would have loved to, and I don't have that talent either, I really wish I did, I used a program called AI Music. And I said, this is the lyrics. This is the song I want. This is the genre. This is this. And after about 2 or 3 tries, I got what I wanted. And so I have a song in my little AI music library called Once Upon the Same Day, which is also going to be the title of that book once I finish writing it.
You know, my intro was written by my son, and he knew I liked country, and he couldn't get the right strings either. So he put it into a program called Donna, and it created the intro of Miss Liz's opening. Cool. So he wanted to put some humor in there just to show everybody that his mommy doesn't smoke the dizzy, but she likes the crazy dizzies, you know. So he just kind of put his personal touch into it. Before that, I had an intro that was written by one of the guests that was on in season 1, Shadow God. And we had that for about 5 years. And then the last 2 years, we've had my son's intro. So I think it's really amazing what AI can do when it comes to music. But I don't want AI to take away from the musicians out there that are really, you know, talented in that.
Agree.
But you know, when we can't play those instruments and we can't find the right tune, but we want a song, we do what we need to do, right?
Well, exactly. And to just be fully upfront, I actually went actively looking and could not find, especially within the limited budget that I had. So yeah, when you can't do the way you really want to, when you can't hire the professional as much as you would want to, but you still want what you want, you do what you have to do. And maybe later on you clean it up. Star Wars. I mean, look at Bare Bones. They did Star Wars. It was successful. Then they went back and did it the way they really wanted. Think of it that way.
Absolutely. Well, we have a question here about the podcast from Real Charlotte. Which podcast project has surprised you the most? The Molten Truth or Behind the Diagnosis?
Wow. I'm amazed that Behind the Diagnosis has even been on anyone's radar. Thank you for that. So both were surprising in different ways. Number one, I never, ever dreamed of having a podcast until a year ago after that conversation where I was the guest. So the Molten Truth was surprising in that respect. Never did I think I would have more than one podcast, but Behind the Diagnosis is interesting because in my workday world, the job that pays my bills, keeps a roof over my head, is in the medical field. So Behind the Diagnosis seemed like a logical thing because I have a bird's eye view of a lot of questions that people have that I think, oh, people need to know better. And so I thought, well, let me do something that might help people in general. And at the same time, you know, they can be entertained, but, you know, educated. Oh, thank you for that, Dixon Root. I love that. Thank you. So I thought, okay, I need another podcast to reach the goals that I have in mind. I did this, what's called SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat kind of calculation that they usually do for businesses. I did one for my life. And so the suggestion that came out of it was maybe do a podcast with this particular goal. And that's kind of how Behind the Diagnosis got started. It's currently on a break because I want to revamp it. I want to actually bring people into interview about these medical situations that people need to be more aware of. I still want to tag on to here's a real life scenario, like with John Ritter with his the heart issue that led to his death. I had a number of very interesting episodes. I thought they were interesting. I hope the audience thought they were interesting. But I want to take it beyond the simple, you know, here's the backstory of this, and then here's who this was, and say, okay, but now how do we apply it to life, or what do you need to look for in yourself, your friends, your family?
Well, you know, and we need awareness. I feel that those are the podcasts that we need more of, is the awareness of the real conversations, the real life stories, you know, where people are opening up about their experiences. And John Ritter is a story that not many people know about.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
well, that's the thing, they aortic dissection, because, you know, and this is why I did his story, because not only did people need to be aware of that situation, but his situation actually changed medical history. It changed the way that emergency room procedure does, because when you come in with chest pains, but before John Ritter, they had a set protocol for chest pains. They assumed it was a heart attack. aortic dissection is not the same thing. And those protocols were actually further endangered and actually cost him his life. Now, he might still have died. It's possible. Or had they been aware, because he had done his due diligence. His father, Tex Avery, I think that's right. I think his father was Tex. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But his father also died from aortic dissection. So John Ritter actually actively had these conversations with his doctors ahead of time. So that was known. His family went to great lengths after John's death to, go back and say, hey, look, you all need to take a closer look at this because he knew about this, but this still happened.
Well, and that's the thing, right? A lot of people go to a doctor and they know their body better than the doctor does.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is dismissed, right? Because the doctor has the book smart, but they don't have the human smart, if that makes sense to you, Zoey. There's so many times you go to a doctor and doctor's like, it's just a headache, or it's just a cold, it's just a flu. And then you end up and you're getting a triple bypass, or you're having a heart attack, or you're getting cancer, or you know your body better. And I really hope that my listeners advocate for themselves when it comes to healthcare.
They definitely should. I mean, there are a lot of really great medical entities out there who do, ask the right questions, but some maybe don't. And, it's not a one size fits all situation any more than the patient is a one size fits all situation. But by all means, regardless of how good or bad the entity, yes, please advocate for yourself. Definitely.
And you don't need to be somebody famous to advocate. Just advocate for yourself. Advocate for your well-being, your mental health, your, recovery, healing. Be the advocate for yourself. That's what I want from you guys that are listening to Tea Time. Be the advocate. Get a lot from these conversations and stories that we get. I've got some lightning bolt questions for you, Zoey, that I want to get out. So just some quick answers. Song lyric or book quote?
The rocking horse came from an old oak tree. Something magic out of something frightening. And that's how I live my life. I take it as it comes.
Oh, I like it.
Sarah Evans, wonderful song.
See, back to the music. She goes back to the music all the time. I like it. Zoey, that's nice because you know what? That gives a little bit of away about your storytelling in your books as well. Are there lyrics in the stories?
I don't think so yet, but it's not a bad idea. I might go there one of these days.
Mm-hmm. Pay attention, and then at the end of the book, say, "Did you find the lyric?"
There you go. I like it. It'd be like a treasure hunt,
right? Like a scavenger hunt. I think that'd be cool at the end of a book. You got to read the whole book to know where the lyric is, right?
I like it.
Beach escape or mountain retreat?
I love water. I very passionately love anything water related, Caribbean, lake, ocean, whatever. But yeah, I'll take that over a mountain any day. Mountains are beautiful, but I prefer the water.
One emotion that inspires your writing the most?
Oh, that is an interesting question. I think maybe more than anything, hope. Whether it's my fiction, whether it's my romance, hope, resilience. That's really maybe the underlying emotion.
Yeah. It's going to bring me into your tea. Coffee house or quiet writing room?
You said coffee, tea, or quiet reading room? Say that again.
A coffee house or a quiet writing room?
For writing purposes, I'd say the coffee house. I like a little background noise.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't really do well with quiet unless it's like outside because there's still natural sounds. I don't like quiet.
Oh, interesting. What makes a story unforgettable for you?
It has to be a character, a very strong character dealing with some really crazy stuff. Some of my favorite books are just characters that are just dealing with unthinkable world conditions and coming through it.
Oh, I like it. Guys, you got to go get that book. I'm telling you, because she's giving you a little bit of insight about how she writes. If you could give your life story a title, what would it be?
Blind Man's Bluff.
Oh, I did not see that coming.
Sometimes I just feel like someone's put a blindfold on me, turned me around, and said, "Stumble around in the dark till you find the treasure."
Oh my goodness. Interesting, girl. Interesting. Now let's get into your tea before we wrap up this tea time. The tea that you gave me was escape, authentic, and feelings. Tell me why you gave me those 3 words, Zoe.
Oh, because writing and reading are both really the ultimate forms of escapism to my way of thinking, especially in my life. I mean, when I sit down and write, I am completely lost in a completely different world, and I'm happy to be there and out of this world. So there's that one. So that's the escape portion. And I'm sorry, I've got Swiss cheese memory tonight.
Authentic and feelings.
Okay, so authenticity, and when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about, how characters in my mind should act in real life versus the romanticized and this is what happens and everyone lives happily ever after. I like people to be happy, but I want it to be real. And that's like the case in point with Love Lives and Pina Coladas. There's a real situation, real emotions. This is how it would happen in real life, but without the fluffy, glossy stuff. So that's where the authentic thought comes from.
And feelings. Then, where does feelings come in?
So I'm trying to think. Feelings. I don't remember feelings being part of the tea. So
that's the tea I got.
Okay. Yeah, feelings to me.
See, when you gave me the tea, it could change. It doesn't have to be the same, Zoe. Remember, you did some checking on this tea, and you came back and you said, "Oh, that's interesting. What you do with the tea." So what would your last word be today? Because feelings is not sitting with you today. So give me the word that is that's sitting with you today.
Right. I guess the thoughtfulness, the deep thinking, someone who's going to chase after things and really root it out. I'm actually kind of thinking back to a nickname someone once gave me, which was Badgerfant. Someone who relentlessly pursues something, doesn't forget about it, keeps coming back to it till they get the result. And so I think that's maybe the feeling, just that really rooting it out, really digging deep and finding something that really resonates.
See, that's where the feelings were. You just needed to dig a little dig.
Badgerfant.
This is what it is. It's tea. I don't tell them how they serve their tea, guys. I just dig a little deeper and try to understand, because those were your words. I didn't give you those words. Those were the words you gave me. So I was interested when I seen that you gave me the word feeling. And I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting because she can go in many directions with feelings.
Right. Well, the funny thing is, and this is what was sort of knocked me off, because I was thinking, okay, well, T, it has to be like TEE or TEA. So I agonized, so like, what am I going to choose that fits in these letters? And so
everyone's overthinking their T's. Even my listeners, don't overthink your T. Just serve what belongs to you. It's 3 steps. It's 1, 2, 3, right? It's T, the past, the present, and the future. What is your story? What is your T? That is what tea time is all about.
Yeah.
And you gave it to me. You were just overthinking it too much. And that's what I told Mickey about a lot of people. They overthink their tea and they're like, I don't understand what Miss Liz wants. Miss Liz just wants to know what your past, your present, and your future look like. And that kind of leads us into this question that Charlotte just sent in. And it is, what's the next creative project you're most excited about, Zoe?
Right now, what has my attention is a book I'm calling Zara's Chocolate, which goes back to that Aldi's.
She goes back to chocolate.
That's the one that's most in my brain. I've been, I did an outline for it, but I've been rethinking portions. I do a lot of thinking about books before I sit down and, even outline or even write. So, when I have free moments to think my own thoughts, which are so rare, it seems like, my thoughts are about Zara's Chocolate at the moment.
I love it. So Zoe, how can people get the book? And if you could just spell out your website for the audio listeners and your final message for all the listeners tonight.
Sounds good. So ZoeyMichaels.com is my website. Zoey for me is spelled Zoey. Last name Michaels, Michaels.com, which goes against my grade. I always discourage people from spelling, but in this case, we'll make an exception. So you can find all of my books on ZoeyMichaels.com with the links, which primarily go to Amazon. I am on other, booksellers. The majority of my books are digital. There are a couple that do have hardback versions, not hardbacks, paperback versions. There's one that maybe has hardback. And someday in my dreams, maybe I'll have some Audible.
I can see audio books coming from you, Zoey.
I would like to. It's in my wish list, my someday list. I actually took training to do narration at one point, the Audible training, but yeah, like my brother says, it's good to have goals.
Right? It's good to have goals. For all of you listeners out there, it's good to have goals. What are your goals? Share them with Miss Liz and Zoey after we close up. Zoey, what is your final message for everybody tonight?
I'm not sure if there's a better thing than what my brother said about it's good to have goals, except maybe one of my favorite sayings, when things don't go right, go left.
We go back to the sideways thing.
You better believe it.
I really love this conversation. I loved our engagement tonight. I loved the support and the questions that came in tonight. I could not do this without all of you guys. I'm just going to do a quick recap of what tonight's tea time is, and then we'll have 2 final tea times for June. July's lineup is going to be released on the weekend, so stay tuned for that. There's 22 incredible guests that are coming in July from all different countries again, so stay tuned. You just never know who's coming to the table and what topic Miss Liz is bringing. So tonight, what an incredible conversation we've shared tonight. So we thank you for bringing your creativity, authenticity, and unique perspective to the tea time table. Your storytelling reminds us that every shadow has depth. Every challenge holds a lesson, and every person carries a story worth telling. Today, we explored imagination, resilience, identity, emotional truth, and the courage it takes to embrace life's unexpected twists rather than run from them. One of the strongest takeaways from tonight's conversation is this: life isn't defined by the moments that break us, it's defined by how we choose to rebuild. Through fractured shadows, you invite readers to look beyond appearance and discover that strength often grows from vulnerability, and healing often begins by facing what we're tried to hide. You've also reminded us that great storytelling doesn't simply entertain, it helps us better understand ourselves and one another. As we close tonight's tea time, I leave everyone with this thought. What if the fracture in your own story aren't signs of weakness, but the very places where your greatest strengths, wisdom, and purpose are beginning to emerge? Because every chapter, even the difficult ones, contribute to the story of who we become. Thank you, Zoey, for sharing your imagination, your heart, and your gift for storytelling with the Tea Time community. And until next time, keep writing your story with courage, keep embracing every chapter, and keep serving real life tea one conversation at a time. And tonight's takeaway is our lives are not defined by our broken pieces and places. They are defined by the courage to transform those fractures into strength, hope, and new beginnings. And I'll see everybody next week, and we'll do this all over again.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.